All right, good evening, everybody. Good Nerve Shabbos. We're continuing on the Sefer Bilvavi Mishkan Evneh. We are up to Perek Tezayin, the 16th chapter. It's not really, each chapter is very short, so it's a different element of the process of building up in our dveikus and our closeness to Hashem, and our understanding of our dveikus to Hashem. And each week we're learning something new, and a different step in this avoda. And today will be no different. We'll be learning an additional step in the avoda with the Bilvavi keeping us on our approach of how individually we should be working on our connection and our relationship. So here we go. I'm going to share the English with everybody on the screen. All right, chapter 16. Yesh piskom yadua. There is a well-known expression. Shamirov eitzim lo roim es hayar. When somebody is among many, many trees, you can't see the forest anymore. It's very hard to step back when you're in something and see the whole picture. When you're inside the forest, all you see is the tree in front of you. But when you're far away from the forest, you see all these trees and the combination and the beauty. But when you're standing right in front of a tree, you can't see the whole forest. When you're very close to something, it's very hard to see the totality. Okay? Now, with this expression in mind, let's keep reading. Everything that Hashem has put into existence serves a ruchniistic purpose. It serves a spiritual purpose. Anything. There's a reason for it. There's a spiritual reason for it. Not only every entity, including a mosquito, including a PIG, including illnesses, including anything that's out there. There's a reason why Hashem put into creation, and it's meant to be used in a spiritual way. Everything can be used to serve a spiritual purpose. And therefore, we're going to use this expression of the world of you can't see the forest from the trees for a spiritual purpose now as well, to teach ourselves an important lesson of growing in our relationship with Hashem. Okay? What is the shape of our life supposed to look like? Dveikas b'Hashem Yisparach, and what is the life of clinging to Hashem Yisparach? Yesh taryag mitzvos. There are 613 mitzvos. 613 mitzvos. Now remember, the Bilvavi taught us the first week that mitzvahs should not be looked at like just random things that we grab. Of course, if a mitzvah comes our way, you grab it. Okay? Of course, you grab a mitzvah when it comes your way. I've been telling over recently, I find this quite cute from an Israeli kid, but I have a nephew in Eretz Yisrael who I believe at the age of 9 or 10. So my sister came outside to tell him that it's time for bed. He's got to come inside. He's playing outside with his friends. It's time for sleep. He says, "Yeah, Mom, I'm coming. So she says, "Great." So she goes back inside. 10 minutes later, he's still not inside. She comes back out. She says, "No, you said you're coming." He says, "This is an Israeli kid who's too smart for himself." He says, "Ma, mitzvah habaliyadcha al tachmitzena," which means that when a mitzvah comes your head, don't let it become chametz. Every time you tell me something, I have 18 minutes. That's what he tells her. I have 18 minutes anytime you tell me something. As long as it's not chametz, I still have 7 more minutes before I need to come in. That's his response, So, of course, when a mitzvah comes our way, al tachmitzena, don't let it rot and grab it. But mitzvahs are not these random things that we're just grabbing to receive reward. There's a structure to the mitzvos. This is what we discussed the first week, and now he's going to start clarifying this for us. So let's keep reading. Yesh taryag mitzvahs v'ikarim Talmud Torah. We know the 613 mitzvahs, and the main one is the study of Torah. Kemosha Kosav Chazal, as the sages teach us, for Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam, the Talmud Torah is equal to the other mitzvahs. What does that mean? V'hinei, and behold. Very important. I want to take this very slow. I want to take this concept slow, because I believe that this idea is going to be very personal to us if we think about it properly. So here we go. The 613 mitzvos are all roots. What's a root? A root is something that possesses the ability to perpetuate growth, to give stability, and to allow something to continue to grow. The 613 mitzvahs are roots. That's really all they are. That have so many numerous details. The makeup of a root is so precious and so important. Listen to what the Zohar HaKadosh writes a mitzvah is. The Zohar writes, Shahataryag mitzvos, the 613 mitzvos are taryag itin in Aramaic. The 613 mitzvahs are 613 pieces of advice. Meaning they are eitzos la'adam. When it says in the Torah, Tendler, do this mitzvah, it's advice. If you want to be healthy and nutritious as a person, here's my advice to you, says Hashem. Do this. Do this. Don't do this. Ask about this. So on and so forth. And it's advice that Hashem is giving us. The 613 mitzvahs is advice that Hashem is giving us in how to cling to Him. You want to cling to me? I'm going to teach you how. I'm going to show you how. Kolomar, meaning Kol mahusam shel mitzvahs. Each mitzvah eino mahus atzmi is not individual. We're not supposed to. This is very, very holy. This is very chashuv a thing. Let's think about this. It's not that I should view the mitzvah of respecting my spouse, sibling, parent, and then there's another mitzvah of Shabbos and another mitzvah of smiling at somebody and another mitzvah of don't kill. And it's all these random things that we're supposed to just take in and see how much of this we could do. No. They're all connected. It's all advice on this road of, Menachem Tendler, me and you want to get close to Hashem? Let me show you how. Here's some advice on how you can do this, on how you can cling to Hashem. The mahus shel hamitzvos, the essence of a mitzvah. Heim einam inyam atzmi. It's not an individual essence. Ella mapa. It's a map. Mare makom ma'at. On a mat, you have little places. Oh, you're driving from St. Louis to Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, Toronto. Where are you going? Where are you going with this? Go to Tennessee? You're going to have markers on the map. Oh, this is where you're trying to go. Let me show you. It's markers. Each mitzvah is a mark on the map. How we can keep on our path to keep getting closer and closer to cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If so, ha-mitzvah morkeves bebeis chalakim. A mitzvah is morkeves, is a graft. It's grafted out of two chalakim, two parts. Mechelek hamaisi sheba or hadibor bechadom. You're going to have the action of a mitzvah, the speech of a mitzvah. You will have the tachlis shel mitzvah, the purpose of the mitzvah. But everything ultimately is shehi lekarevu ledabek es ha'adam lekono. It's to come closer and to teach me how to keep moving along on this path of feeling closer and to cling to our Creator. Nimtza imkain, and therefore it comes out. You know what? There's a lot of different things to do. There's plenty of mitzvos. There's plenty of mitzvos to do. And that's referring to all these trees in the forest. There's many trees in the forest. There's many mitzvahs to do. Like, okay, let me grab a mitzvah here. Let me do a Shabbos. Let me do this. Let me do that. But as far as the essence of each mitzvah, they're really not different things that we're grabbing. Really, mitzad tachlis hadavarim kol mitzvah kavana achas lahem. There's one intent for everything, and that's kirvas Hashem udvekas Hashem, and that's teaching me how to come close to Hashem. And I want to keep going into 17 without pausing because he's going to give us an example of what he's talking about. This obviously is going to apply more to men, but each of us could take this for mitzvahs that we do. Says the Bilvavi, take for example a man who wakes up every morning and puts on a talus. Person puts on a talus. They want to come to shul, so what do? They put on a talus. This bone even knows a big mitzvah. Let's take an example of one mitzvah. A man puts on a mitzvah. A man does a mitzvah. He puts on a talus. Adam come by biker. Wakes up in the morning. He decides he's going to shul. He wraps himself in a talus. So the Torah says when you put on a four-cornered garment, you put on the strings and you fulfill a mitzvah. All right. Well, here's the problem. The problem is that when you wake up in the morning and you have one eye open and one eye closed, you don't even remember that you're up. It's very early in the morning. What am I thinking when I wrap my talus? Halavai, I should be thinking anything. Hopefully I'm thinking. I have the ability to think. Usually, I don't know. I'm putting on a talus, right? There's a oft-quoted story about Rav Shimon Schwab, Zechreinu Livracha. I believe he passed away in the late 80s. There was amongst the general Ashkenaz minhag, the custom is for men to start wearing a talus the first time they get married. Even if a person is divorced or ends up being widowed, they continue wearing a talus. But there was a man who was getting married and he was putting on a talus for the first time. That was his custom. Other people have a custom to start that it's not. Other people have a custom. They put on it from the time that they're bar mitzvah. Right? There's different customs out there. So he's feeling very spiritual. He's feeling very holy. So he comes to Rav Shimon Schwab and he says, I'm getting married. For the first time, I'm going to put on a talus. I'm going to wrap myself in the holiness of a talus. What important thoughts should I keep in mind? What should I have in mind when I wrap myself in this mitzvah? And Rav Shimon Schwab smiles at him and he says, have in mind not to whack the guy behind you in the eye with your strings. All right? That's the biggest mitzvah you can do when you put on your talents. Don't whack the guy behind you. All right? Right? That's also spirituality. Be careful whose toes you're stepping on, So somebody's waking up in the morning and they're putting on a talis. All right. So it's a mitzvah d'oraisa. It's a, but what's a person thinking at that time? Right. So now, like we said, I'm going to share the screen again. But as we said, is a person even thinking anything? We do many mitzvahs. Are we even thinking anything? What are we keeping in mind over here? So here's what's happening. Really, the first question should not be, what is this person thinking? Maybe he's not even thinking, like we said. Maybe he doesn't even know what's going on. Okay? Yeah. Sometimes we just do things out of habit. But let's assume that he is thinking. If he is thinking, so let's look at this person's mind. If his mind's in a good place, he has proper thoughts, what should he be thinking? What should we think? So he's got to be thinking the following. Kivan, since the Torah says that when I do a mitzvah, I should know what I'm doing. Imkain al ha'adam lechavin, a person should have in mind. Sheba atifaso betalis, when he's being wrapped in a talis, he's fulfilling a biblical command, and therefore that's what I want to do as well. Okay? But now let's view this. Okay, so that's a talis. But now let's put this into the context that we were discussing in chapter 16, which is that every mitzvah is a root and a piece of advice. According to what we said, Taryag mitzvahs, that the 613 mitzvahs are Taryag Eitzos, are 613 pieces of advice. Ketzad described the Baruch, how on the roadmap, how to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Imkain, if so, Kivan Shad Misati B'Talis Yom Yom, I do this every day. Shvuah, maybe once a week. Zeshanim Rabbis, sometimes for many years at a time. Why am I not feeling anything? Why don't I feel this? This happens to all of us. A person lights candles on Friday night for the first time. Oh, it's so special. And then the second week, yeah, it's still special. And the second month, 5 years later, it's supposed to still be special. And it should be each time. But is there the same excitement, the same geschmack as the first time that we lit the candles? Do I still feel I'm coming close to Hashem with this mitzvah, that mitzvah? What's it doing to me? Do I really feel like it's bringing me close to Hashem, or am I just doing it because that's what I do now? If the Zohar is telling us something, then he's telling us a fact. And therefore, the imkain, and therefore, we need to be that every person has in mind daily to fulfill a mitzvah to wrap themselves in a talis la'at la'at. And if we remind ourselves of this slowly but surely, yom v'yom, every day, daily, yachosh yoser es kirvas Hashem belivo, do I expect to come to feel closer to Hashem every day? Why doesn't this happen? This doesn't happen. Why do we find that when a person does a mitzvah over time, why actually does it happen that we stop feeling close to Hashem as opposed to feeling closer and closer? What's going on? Right? It's interesting. It's a very interesting point he's bringing up. We think the more you do a mitzvah, the closer and more excited we would get. Yet we find that gradually it works the other way. When we start, I feel so great, it's so spiritual, unbelievable, right? And then over time, we stop feeling that spirituality. Why is that? Behechrich, it's got to be that the mitzvah of talis, the mitzvah of candle, whatever it is, there's got to be, if I'm not every time I do it feeling a little closer to Hashem, if it's not making me if I'm not automatically working in that direction, it must be there's got to be a little more truth to this mitzvah that I'm just missing out on. But I'm finding that it's not bringing me closer, even though I'm doing this. If Hashem's giving me advice with this mitzvah on how to come close to Him, why is it not working? God Himself is telling me exactly what needs to be done. And I'm doing that, but I'm not feeling closer. So what's wrong with me? Am I missing something? Is there something else to discover in this mitzvah? Shetachlis apnimis, that there's something more internal about the mitzvah, that I should feel closer to Hashem, which obviously is not going to happen naturally just by performance. What the Bilvavi just proved to us, and if I'm normal, this happens to me constantly. What he just proved to us is, if a mitzvah is a roadmap of coming close to Hashem, yet I'm performing a mitzvah, and instead of bringing me closer to Hashem, I might gradually feel further than I did originally. This is a proof, he says, that there must be more to each mitzvah, which is meant that we're missing out on. Because God Himself tells us, if you do this mitzvah appropriately and properly, you will feel naturally closer to me. It's going to happen. But I don't find it. Well, if I don't find it, that means that my mitzvah is an action mitzvah. I'm following through on the action of the mitzvah. But I'm not really getting yet the soul of the mitzvah. There's got to be something more root-oriented, deeper in the mitzvah, that's supposed to be dragging me on this map of closeness to Hashem, and I'm missing out on it. So what is it? Okay? So here we go. Let's wrap up this last paragraph for this evening. 18. Novenes advarim. Let's try to really build. Okay, the word noven is used to understand, but it really means to build on this understanding. We gave an example about you putting on a talis. Ulam zui rak dugma bam. That this is just a general example. Every single one of us here, I guarantee you, has performed countless mitzvos today. Countless. Whether we're even aware of it or not. The way we walk, the way we smile, the way we interact. If we went outside to put on a mask as chesed for somebody else, every second that we're doing that is a kindness to somebody else to try to protect them. We've done countless mitzvahs throughout the day. So this talis example is just an example. Ulai, but, however, yesh lan wasachitzayin shel Torah mitzvahs. We learn Torah. We do mitzvahs. But is it just doing? The pnimius, the essence, the truth of a mitzvah, shehi tachlisam, which is the purpose. Why am I doing this? To bring me closer to Hashem, but that's not happening. It's happening. Of course it's happening. I'm receiving a reward. But am I feeling closer to Hashem? Am I feeling that joy in being close to the Ribono Shel Olam through this mitzvah? Nechseres l'rabim. Most of us are missing this. B'tzarich bira. And therefore we need to clarify to ourselves, how do we do this? Ketzad haderech lo motor l'kayim mitzvahs. What are we going to do? How can we learn Torah, do mitzvos, ulezakos, and merit through this to actually feel closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the goal? Bilvavi Mishkan Evneh. He says, this is why I entitled this sefer, this book, Bilvavi in my heart, Mishkan Evneh, I will build a sanctuary. And I find this very, very interesting that it comes out. We're reading this Torah portion in 2 days. Okay, we're in Parshas Truma about making ourselves into a sanctuary. That's the message of all the donations that we're giving to the sanctuary in the temple, the Mishkan, was not just an edifice. It was all messages for us personally, how to come closer to Hashem. And that's really what the Hashem's goal of all this is. Bilvavi, that we should look at the Mishkan, everything that's done in the Mishkan, and build our own Mishkan in our hearts. Zehu tafkido shel kol Yehudi. This is really what we're trying to accomplish. So we need to clarify. We need to clarify to ourselves, to recap what we've done this evening. We need to recap, first of all, that the 613 mitzvos are not things that we just grab. They are roots and pieces of advice on how to come close to Hashem, not to get lost in the trees, but to be able to see the forest, so that when we perform a mitzvah, any mitzvah, it could be Torah learning, it could be wearing a mask, it could be putting on a talis, it could be lighting Shabbos candles, any mitzvah that exists out there, that it doesn't remain just an action, because if it remains an action, we're going to over time feel that we're losing a closeness. Rather, we have to realize that mitzvos are not performance. Mitzvos are underlying, not opportunities, they're underlying things that should really connect us to Hashem. And we have to learn how to use these mitzvos to connect to Hashem. We're at a half hour of the shir so far. So the how is going to have to wait, a little bit of a cliffhanger, as it usually happens each week. We have to wait for the how for chapter 19 and 20, and we'll pick up from there next week. But for now, we'll offer the opportunity to unmute. If anybody would like to share, ask a question, have a discussion. Otherwise, we will hold it. We'll